This is how one should really experience Abernethy Forest, off the beaten track.
Looking at the leaves themselves, they are formed in pairs up each leaf stem, and the leaves have a central vein on them, and they're quite prominently toothed.
There we go, couple of tries. Birch.
Right, so what you have to do is hold it down. That's why I'm wrapped up warm. I'm sitting on it. Is to visualise what it is you actually want to make.
It's a bait trap. What you do is you bind the bait onto here. As you see, we create a wall, it sticks just like this to guide it in so it all can come in. So even if it dislodges it as it's coming in, you know.
There we go. It's working. I've been given the task of lighting fires in the roundhouse, and these sort of things are just lying around. Wow.
$3,500 years old bit of woods excavated from the first ever bridge made in England.
The level, spirit level. Sorry. There you go.
Ooh. That's sick.
Essentially the guy that I take orders from every Wednesday. I volunteer with these guys. I can't recognise who's who though. That's the problem. Hang around and move around and stuff.
So you're saying, well, you do the same with cats and dogs, no, you don't.
Hello. Hi there.
Fun things. I don't know if you've seen the archaeology trips over there. Right up in the far corner.
So I've chosen to sleep in this roundhouse. I've chosen this one for a sort of atmosphere, and it's got obviously nice patterns. The big roundhouse is sort of plain. This is quite a good one. It's not that cold either, and it's going to go to sleep anyway. So I've chosen this simple setup. Okay, so it's the 12th of April 2014, and this is the first time I've been camping with Taylor. So I've got the big bits there, smaller bits, even smaller bits, and kindling. Taylor's over here working on making a cup, and we'll be having dinner soon, I think, or soonish. That's a successful fire. It's pretty good this time. It doesn't need to be big. I'm boiling already. Yeah, it's really warm.
One of the greatest tactics of the age is forming the shield wall. We form interlocking shields, and these are very difficult to penetrate. Shield wall.
Go on that perch. So again, you can see he's not too smooth in the flow of the wind. Like I said, he's only 10 3/4 ounces.
present day. And of course, these fantastic sort of
No, when you, this boat is only. That's in the worst bit of flying. No, that's how much we finished it. The log with Scotch pine, it got failed in October of last year. And farm 2 months ago. Right. We've been working around the clock since. Wow.
I guess I could talk a little bit more about my background, I suppose. So I volunteered at Yellowcraig Country Park in Scotland, moved down here, volunteered at Butser Ancient Farm for, I'm not entirely sure how many months, let's say half a year or so, doing projects such as the Wickerman build for 2013 or 2014 I should say. At Butser Ancient Farm I took part in a Mesolithic boat build where we used a Scots pine log and hauled it out and took that to Secrets of the Heath event in Petersfield, Hampshire. So that was a good experience as well. What else have I done? Queen Elizabeth Country Park volunteering as well. So fair bit of experience there, and I've been a Sparshall student since September. And it's going quite well so far. Hello everyone, welcome to the second vlog. So I'm standing in Our Wood, which is where I had my last video, recorded my last video. Except it's actually 3 weeks later, or more. So a lot of progress here, a lot of bluebells out. I'll turn the camera actually, you can see a lot of bluebells, lesser celandine. I mean, it's a fairly sizable, I mean it's a college woodland, but it's actually fairly sizable. I mean it's got 7 sections and it's covered with ramsons, Solomon seal, muscatel, cleavers, just the whole lot really, the whole sort of collection of semi-natural ancient woodland plants. I'm going away to Craig Meggie, so I'll probably be doing a video or maybe a video series for that, and I'll definitely be writing up a report on that as well.
Good calf. What's that bull? Alright, she's a good calf, look. Exactly. Right, but if you hold away that, maybe the sheep. I'll just hold the kennel like that, please.
antarlasisorinen, jeni jo nottome veramar alderon, jeni velin tio der avenier, miro mardi lisi miro voreva, andoni pelavardo telomar, no luini asin tinte lari eleni, o Mario artari lirinen. Si mani jolmanin quantuva.
Ash regenerates very freely in woods like this. You might want to think about the pros and cons of, is it a useful thing to try and establish some more oak in here?
Especially with ash dieback and beech.
Especially with ash dieback. The other thing is, if there is sycamore through here, and I'm pretty sure there is, what would your attitude be to sycamore? Well, okay, we're told it's a non-native, it's invasive, blah-de-blah-de-blah, you know, cut it down, bite it, scratch it, all these other things. I'm not convinced. There is a sort of a movement towards tolerating sycamore, because ecologically it's quite similar to ash, and the two often replace each other in succession in woodlands.
Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of Olden World Books. As this is the first episode, I'd like to just give a little bit of background on myself, and then we'll get straight into the book. So I'm a writer, and my background is in nature and ecology and countryside management. So a lot of my books you probably will find out eventually that are related to nature, and the books that I read are related to nature. I think we should not forget where we came from. We should not forget our origins, and it's just a suspicion of everything becoming technologized and digitized and sleek, sort of forgetting tradition in a way. It's an unfortunate thing that we don't value beauty as much, and that's something that really frustrates me, if I'm being honest. I think about it a lot whenever I see Tokyo or New York or wherever it might be, and there's just these great slabs plastered over with advertisements, and there's neon lights, and there's, of course, in London with the Gherkin or whatever it's called, the Shard. Just the fact that certain people just want to destroy what's been built. I'm aware more and more recently that my thoughts align with people hate this term, but small c conservatism, and it's as good a fit as I can find at the moment. Although I'm well aware of the pitfalls. It's just this erasure of culture and history. It's just a sad thing. I remember that evening I went for a stroll before going to bed. The sun was going down, and I just randomly seen it. I saw a deer walk past, and I remember as the deer walked past, I put my hand out, sign of respect, and I realised now that is a very much kind of a strong case study for wonder. I think I was taken aback by the agency of this other creature that had entered my world. Most people throughout history were animists. They were animistic. They believed that nature had the potential to be a set of subjects, not incompletely analysed objects. Even when I think about my background in ecology and scientific ecology, it creates an issue in that I feel like I've almost betrayed this new path that I've come into, in the sense that, I mean, even just saying the name of one of my courses, my diploma before I did the degree, countryside management, there's so much wrong with that. For one, the countryside aspect perpetuates the dichotomy of the nature and civilization dichotomy, or the humans and nature dichotomy, or nature and culture, for example. The idea that the countryside is just out there somewhere, that we are apart from nature. More problematic is the management aspect. Now, of course, I studied scientific ecology for 5 years, half a decade, and I'm fully aware of the necessity of managing ecosystems. But it's problematic for this new sense of this new animistic perspective that I'm trying to understand more about. If Craig Meggie is important to us, and it holds a sense of reverence, Glencoe is that, but extremely amplified. Glencoe is my favourite place on earth. It holds so much meaning to me that it's hard to put into words, and we've repeatedly gone back to Glencoe every handful of years or so. For some reason, I neglected to discuss a particular mountain in Glencoe. It is rather fitting, however, that I passed over it in silence, because when we enter Glencoe, despite the fact that we're talking and we're listening to lofty and grand music, there's usually a point where we will stop speaking, and that is when we behold Buckill Etive Moor. There's no real difficulty when it comes to Abernethy Forest. Abernethy is my favourite woodland on earth. It's a native pinewood in Scotland, in the Highlands of Scotland, in the Cairngorms National Park. Of course you get plantations, pinewood plantations all across the UK, but the Caledonian pine forest is an ancient woodland type. It's known for its wildcat, its Scottish crossbill, its wood ants, its capercaillie, and its osprey as well. I think my most treasured memory of Abernethy is when I went there with my twin. We went to Loch Garton, which is a rather stunning loch in the centre of Abernethy Forest. And we were moved by the just the serene quality of the loch. If you don't have places like this, for example, woodlands, real natural places to get out into and to enjoy. Hold on to the little slither of green that you do have. Concrete or ephemeral, hidden or apparent, subterranean or celestial. What these diverse locations have in common is a way of seeing that looks beyond the given, capable of multiplicity and alteration. We moderns have forgotten much of this lost knowledge of the gateways. And is that any surprise when ours is a world of homogeneity and cacophony? Imposing slabs of stone and faceless towers of glass hem us in as we suffer under a regime of blinding lights and grating noise. We cannot even see in front of us, let alone envisage different realities, and we cannot change our thoughts because we find it difficult even to hear them. The only passage we experience is that of being swept along in neat lanes by a dizzying modernity. We seem to be rejecting the more than human natural world. We seem to be forgetting that we are part of a wondrous earth with its own intrinsic value, and that life is lived in relationship with others, and those others aren't just humans. It seems to be, I'm not sure if I said this word before in the previous section of the video, but a soured humanism in identity politics, where it seems to be dissecting the human down to individual labels, and as a result of that, it's focusing on the human, putting the human on a pedestal. Me, my labels. My sexual preference or my skin pigmentation is the most important part about me, which is an absolutely ridiculous notion. This world is wondrous in and of itself, and the experience of wonder is an experience that points toward the intrinsic value. There's an ethical stance to wonder. It's fundamentally relational, and in a moment of enchantment, my own personal sense of identity is dissolved. However, I'm still fundamentally myself. I am drawn toward this non-human person. Wonder is very fundamentally relational. It values the circumstantial, the contingent. There's no need to evoke, in my understanding, there's no need to evoke anything to do with the transcendent, the abstract. It's wholly material, but also spiritual. That's kind of the fundamental ontological basis of wonder. Max Weber, he's really the founder of this whole discourse surrounding wonder and disenchantment. His whole idea was that increased rationalization and increased intellectualization was bringing about the so-called disenchantment of the world. And so Max Weber's ideas were then developed by people like Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer, who spoke about self-alienation, power dynamics and things like this. The idea that a lot of our relations come down to desiring mastery over one another, that our attempt at mastery of nature only increases our self-alienation and distance from nature. We might control it, but we're then distanced. So we've talked about all these different thinkers like Max Weber, then Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer. I was very much reinforced and affirmed in my own thinking by Patrick Curry. He is actually one of the chief thinkers in my thesis, and I mention him in my abstract. That's really, his ideas are really where I feel like I understand wonder and disenchantment the most. And what fascinated me about Patrick Curry's writing on wonder is that he also happens to be a Tolkien scholar. So he talks about the philosophy and ethics of wonder within the framework of Tolkien studies. And so, as I was reading his work on wonder and Tolkien at the same time, I always felt that Dunsany had a lot in common with what Patrick Curry was saying. A lot in common with what Patrick Curry was saying, but also, again, obviously, I feel like his fiction could be very much aligned with Tolkien's. So while I will talk about Patrick Curry's ideas in more detail as I'm going through the different chapters of my thesis, the main ideas that he gets across is really, I guess it can be summed up as value pluralism. The idea that what we need to value is a multiplicity of qualities. We need to return to nature by viewing it in a perspectival and sensuous way, as opposed to trying to control it and trying to master it. And a lot of his own thinking comes down to critiquing anthropocentrism. So I think the best way, the central text to get across this aspect of Dunsany's Pegada mythology is a story, The Sorrow of Search. It's a very aptly named title. The Sorrow of Search. It's about King Canazar, who wants to understand the nature of existence, and so he asks his advisor about where we came from. What is the nature of the gods? And the advisor essentially says, "The road to knowing is hard and hot, O king." He talks about the single road, on either side of which are many, many temples. If you pass down the road and you avoid all the priests that are standing in the temple doors trying to beckon you to come in, and you get to the end, there will be one small god, no bigger than a hair, saying, "I know not." And so it's notable that Dunsany uses that image of the hare, because it's again pointing back to his autobiography, where he talks about the intrinsic value of the earth and how creation is beautiful enough in and of itself, and that one moment really inspired him. That can be read as Dunsany saying, although it seems as if we have no way of knowing, no one true way to salvation, we can look towards nature. The hare, it's almost in front of him. I say something like, in the thesis, the leporine aspect of the god is amplified in the surrounding darkness. And that's all you need to see. Here is that Tolkien says that it's not power and domination that are the main concerns of his legendarium. That's a very key part of it, of course, and he says that. But he says as well that death is the main concern, the main theme that ties everything together. And so to subcreate is actually to, in a sense, to want to halt death, again, because the subcreation is unwedded to biological reality. And so death, of course, is the ultimate limit. So then the employment of magic to halt death is really, it's to deny life itself. It's to deny God's goodness. Tolkien said that we shouldn't want to strive against death because that is part of the natural scheme of things. And so those are really the core ideas behind the account of the Silmarillion, and essentially all of Tolkien's works. It's kind of indicative of what Dunsany is trying to to say in his fiction with a third hemisphere, somewhere that is, it's quite literally another way of seeing it can't exist. It's simply a way, it's a symbolic representation of something outside the known, something different. And so throughout the rest of my discussion of that, I really wanted to just try and bolster the concept of the third hemisphere by aligning this with the characteristics and values of wonder, and specifically in relation to Curry's ideas of logos and mythos. How logos it represents reason, maleness, heaven, and mythos is emotion, earth, and the female. But also, logos has more in common with time and space, whereas mythos is all about place and moment. So I wanted to say that Dunsany's fiction, and I was quite happy with this. I think it ties everything together. Dunsany's fiction is fundamentally about weakening the power of logos and kind of infusing it with mythos. Dunsany wanted to, again, attain a kind of more of a mythic perception of reality, to open up other ways of seeing, to bring back natural beauty associated with the past. It's not based wholly in the comic ecological perspective or framework. It doesn't have the same structural underpinnings as Tolkien's novel. The same comic outlook, the same anti-tragic outlook kind of pervades Dunsany's novel. Elgin says that the comic perspective is one that is fundamentally connective. It doesn't promote a sense of isolation as the tragic perspective does. And so I say that a kind of anti-tragic humour kind of pervades Dunsany's novel. And we see this especially in the fantastical intermediary characters of the novel, like Lurulu the troll, for example. This diminutive, inquisitive troll who is sent by the Elf King to send a rune to Larazel. He also finds wonders in the ways of men, and he comes back to tell the trolls in Elfland, and they kind of laugh and wonder at in a mocking way. But the greater point is that they say that the narrator says that Lurulu finds more wonder in Earth than we do because he's seeing it for the first time. Seeing things for the first time is the key theme of King of Elfland's Daughter.
Everyone.
Although we have complexities in our kind of worldviews and philosophies, the West is very much theocratic, world-denying. They see the domination of nature as being something that allows them to transcend and to become something more. And the East is tied to a kind of a more humanistic set of principles, where they value I should clarify, it's very important, not distorted humanism, very much kind of humane. They value civilizational progress, but they also value nature. They are very much like we kind of model that on Greece and Rome, I suppose, more so Greece.
It's also important to note that, as we like to say, the East is very anthropocentric.
Indeed.
They are not of the same view as the West, that believes that humans and man is above all, which their religion in the West has really taught them to believe that they are above all, and so they can do whatever they please to nature.